So, I want you to picture something, and I guarantee you know this exact feeling.
Well, I feel like I'm already stressed, but go ahead.
Right. So you are at a traditional wedding reception. You've just walked in from the cocktail hour.
Yeah, you got your little appetizer napkin in your hand.
Exactly. And the very first thing you do is join this massive, like slightly anxious huddle of people.
The seating chart huddle.
Yes. Everyone is scanning a giant piece of cardstock on an easel to find their name.
Always alphabetical, always tiny font.
Always. So you trace your finger down the list and you realize, okay, I have been assigned to table 12.
The dreaded table 12.
So you navigate this whole labyrinth of white tablecloths. You make the trek over, you sit down, and reality just sort of sets in.
Right, because you realize you're basically stuck there.
For the next 3 to 4 hours, you are essentially anchored to this specific chair, making polite, low-stakes conversation with, the cousin on your left and some coworker on your right.
And you're just sipping your water.
Just watching the condensation drip down the glass, waiting.
Because you're waiting for that synchronized army of servers to come out.
Exactly. The servers who drop a mathematically identical plate of, like, slightly dry chicken or overcooked fish right in front of you.
Yeah, it's highly structured. Very polite.
But rigidly static. I mean, it's basically the culinary equivalent of an assigned seating chart on a long-haul flight.
That is a perfect way to put it. You are lugged into this highly controlled event, and it really relies on complete compliance from the guests to function.
Right. But now I want you to completely erase that image from your mind.
Okay, erased.
Picture this instead. You
Yeah.
walk into a reception space and immediately the kinetic energy of the room just hits you.
It's totally different, right? People aren't just sitting.
No, they're moving. They are laughing, mingling freely. Their body language is open. And they're all sort of converging around this sprawling, visually stunning masterpiece right in the center of the room.
Oh, the grazing table.
Yes. An undulating landscape of artisanal cheeses, vibrant fresh fruits, cured meats, delicate pastries. I mean, things you wouldn't even expect to see at a wedding.
It completely rewires the social vibe of the room.
It really does. And that right there is the mission of today's deep dive. We are unpacking this massive, industry-altering trend,
They're charcuterie and cheese grazing spreads.
but specifically with modern twists, like how this is completely dismantling and replacing traditional wedding catering.
Because it's not just a trend anymore, it's a fundamental shift.
Exactly. So we're going to look at the psychology of why this is happening, the actual culinary science of what goes onto these tables, and crucially, because I know you're already thinking about the nightmare of organizing this,
Yeah.
how to actually pull this off.
Which is the hardest part, frankly.
It is. So we're going to explore how to execute this using a platform called Weddizer.
Oh, Weddizer is incredible for this.
It really is. We're going to break down how to use their website for food and drinks purposes because they have amazing resources.
Yeah, the tools are top tier.
And we'll talk about finding the best hiring for wedding events, getting guidance through the article section on their website related to this specific niche.
Which is absolutely essential. Because, I mean, as effortless as these tables look on social media...
They don't just spontaneously assemble themselves.
No, they do not. There is a rigorous architectural science to the aesthetics and a deliberate psychological logic to how they dictate the flow of the room.
It's serious engineering.
It is. It's designed to prioritize guest interaction and aesthetic appeal simultaneously. That takes work.
Okay, I like to think of the contrast like this. That traditional plated dinner, table 12, that is like taking a guided bus tour.
Oh, I like that analogy.
You sit in your seat, you look out the window, the tour guide dictates the pace.
And you get the exact same experience as everyone else on the bus.
Right, it's safe, but you have zero control. But a modern grazing table is like a choose-your-own-adventure culinary road trip.
You stop where you want.
Exactly. You linger at the scenic overlook, which, might be a wheel of aged Gouda.
Best overlook ever.
Right. You try what you want, skip what you don't like. You interact with the environment.
But before we get into the food itself, we should unpack the sociology here.
Yeah, why are we seeing this tectonic shift away from the plated meal in the first place?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it all comes down to human behavioral patterns and the psychology of event spaces.
Because historically, a sit-down meal was a flex, right?
Oh, huge flex. It was designed to showcase the wealth and control of the host. Being able to serve 200 people hot food at the exact same minute, that showed you had resources.
But modern couples don't really care about that specific type of flex anymore, do they?
Not at all. Modern guests and hosts put a much higher premium on connection, authenticity, individualized experience.
So the grazing table fits perfectly into that.
Exactly. The core tenet is allowing guests to, quote, explore flavors at their own pace.
At their own pace. That's the psychological key.
Right. By removing the formality of the plated meal, you immediately dismantle these invisible social barriers.
Because you literally have to stand up. You have to physically move your body and interact with the space.
You can't just be a passive participant. You aren't physically trapped in a chair.
So it transforms eating from like an isolating activity into a shared communal experience.
Yes. Think about the micro interactions. You might strike up a conversation with a completely random guest simply because you're both trying to figure out how to slice into a massive honeycomb.
Or you both reach for the same piece of prosciutto.
Exactly. It fosters mingling in a really organic, low-pressure way. It replicates the feeling of everyone gathering in the kitchen at a great house party.
Oh, the kitchen is always the best part of the party. But this is on a grand, elegant scale.
Very grand.
And it's not just the social lubrication. We have to talk about the sheer visual weight of these setups. I mean, they are physically stunning.
They completely blur the line between catering and decor.
Right. You don't just have a floral centerpiece sitting in the middle of a dining table. The food itself becomes the structural centerpiece of the entire room's design.
Which is brilliant because it enhances the wedding photography. It creates this luxurious, almost Romanesque vibe of abundance.
And from a practical standpoint, the versatility is just unmatched.
Oh, absolutely. You can scale a grazing concept perfectly, whether you're hosting 30 people in a rustic backyard or 300 people in an industrial warehouse.
Yeah, the visual impact cannot be overstated. I mean, we process food visually long before we ever taste it.
A well-designed grazing table is essentially a temporary, edible art installation.
But there is a very pragmatic financial psychology at play here too, right?
Definitely. It introduces an element of budget fluidity that traditional per-head plating completely lacks.
Because you aren't locked into a strict, unforgiving $150 per plate contract.
Right, where you are financially penalized for guests who don't show up. Or where you're paying top dollar for a filet mignon that half the guests leave untouched.
Which happens all the time.
All of the time. With a grazing setup, you can turn the dials, you can adjust the specific volume, tweak the premium nature of the ingredients.
So you can allocate your budget toward the things you actually care about.
Which gives the host a massive advantage in resource management.
Okay, let me pause you right there. Because I love the idea of culinary freedom. I love an art installation made entirely of cheese.
Who wouldn't?
But I have to push back hard on this because I am trying to imagine the actual reality of this. Think about the logistics of 150 hungry, slightly inebriated people descending on a single table.
The swarm.
Yes. Doesn't a free-for-all create an absolute bottleneck? I'm picturing chaos. I'm picturing like Aunt Linda hovering over the baked brie, blocking traffic, creating a massive jam in the middle of the reception.
That is a highly valid concern. And honestly, it's almost always the very first anxiety a couple has when considering this.
How does this not immediately devolve into a chaotic mob scene?
Well, this is where the crucial distinction between a buffet and curated abundance comes into play.
Okay, what's the difference?
A traditional buffet line is linear. It forces everyone into a single file line where they shuffle along with a tray.
Right, like a cafeteria.
Exactly. A grazing table is omnidirectional.
Omnidirectional. Okay, so you approach it from all 360 degrees.
Yes. The physical design of the table is strategically engineered by the caterer to prevent bottlenecks. But more importantly, it changes the temporal nature of eating.
Meaning the timing.
Right. Because people are grazing over an extended period, say a 2-hour window, rather than everyone being signaled to sit down and eat at the exact same minute.
Oh, so the flow of traffic is naturally staggered.
Exactly. Some people are dancing, some are at the bar, some are grazing. It is a highly controlled environment that is specifically masquerading as wild, unstructured abundance.
Okay, I hear you on the omnidirectional thing, and the staggered timing makes sense in theory. But let's get real for a second.
Let's get real.
Even with staggered timing, what happens when the really good stuff runs out?
Ah, the premium items.
Yeah, let's say you have a specific high-end imported prosciutto or caviar. People aren't blind. They know what the high-value items are.
They absolutely do.
So don't you still get that shrimp cocktail effect where people swarm the table, hoard the premium items, and leave the later grazers with nothing but like crackers and celery sticks?
And that is exactly where the sophisticated caterers earn their fee.
So how do they stop it?
You combat the shrimp cocktail effect through spatial distribution and calculated replenishment.
Spatial distribution, so you spread it out.
Exactly. You never put all of the premium items in one central location. If you have an incredibly rare truffle cheese, you divide it into 5 smaller portions and scatter it across the topography of the table.
Oh, that's smart. That forces the crowd to disperse.
Furthermore, the table is not static. A professional grazing caterer operates behind the scenes with surgical precision.
They're actively swapping things out.
Yes, actively swapping out boards, replenishing the high-value items in waves, and constantly refreshing the visual landscape.
So the guest who grazes at 7 gets the exact same experience as the guest who grazes at 9.
Precisely. It's curated to be consistent over time.
Okay, so it's not just dropping a massive amount of food and walking away. It's an active, ongoing curation.
Brilliantly disguised order.
I can see that. So since we've established the psychology and we know this isn't just a chaotic feeding frenzy, let's look at the actual canvas.
The fun part, the food.
Let's examine what actually goes onto a modern grazing table, because from what I'm seeing, this concept has evolved way, way past a few slices of cheddar and a box of water crackers.
Oh, absolutely. The evolution of the ingredients is truly remarkable.
We are talking about serious, structural, modern twists.
Well, the foundational architecture is still charcuterie, the cured, preserved meats, and the cheeses, because those provide the necessary fat and salt profiles.
Right, the classics.
But the modern additions are what elevate it from a simple appetizer to a comprehensive, immersive wedding experience.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. We aren't just talking about pairing prosciutto with melon anymore.
Not at all.
We are seeing a massive surge in fusion elements. People are taking unexpected, complex, bite-sized global foods and integrating them directly into the spread.
Which is incredibly hard to pull off, by the way.
But so cool when it works. I'm talking about beautifully constructed, high-end sushi rolls or gourmet, slow-braised, short-rib mini sliders sitting right there on the board next to the aged manchego.
And on top of that, they're completely obliterating the traditional lines between meal courses.
Yes, you have dessert grazing boards seamlessly bleeding into the savory charcuterie.
Imagine reaching for a piece of intense, bitter dark chocolate and purposefully pairing it with a sharp, salty, crystallized aged cheddar.
It's an absolute flavor playground.
And if we look at the sociology of that flavor playground, it directly reflects a broader cultural demand for hyper-personalization.
Because today's couples are fiercely focused on ensuring their wedding reflects their unique, specific identity.
Right. They want their personal culinary history front and center, rather than adhering to rigid, antiquated rules about what constitutes wedding food.
So, if a couple's story involves a first date eating late-night street tacos,
And a proposal in Paris eating high-end brie.
the modern grazing table has the structural flexibility to say, let's feature both.
Exactly. It's a completely bespoke culinary narrative.
I love that concept. It's exactly like creating a highly curated Spotify playlist of a couple's favorite foods.
That's a perfect analogy.
Think about it. In the old days of plated dinners, you basically had to buy the whole album. You got the set menu, the standard tracks.
You get on the chicken, the asparagus, and the mashed potatoes.
Right. But now you can just pull the absolute best tracks, the specific foods you actually have an emotional connection to, and put them all on one beautiful table.
Why on earth would you choose between elegant charcuterie and a spicy tuna hand roll when you can have a seamlessly styled high-end version of both?
You're building a culinary mixtape.
And what's vital to understand is that this personalization extends deeply into dietary inclusivity.
This is a huge point.
It's a massive paradigm shift. We are now seeing dedicated, beautifully designed vegan and gluten-free grazing sections, not just offered, but seamlessly integrated into the core design of the table.
Because, let's be honest about the past. Dietary restrictions were historically treated as an irritating afterthought.
Oh, absolutely. The guest with a severe gluten allergy or a vegan lifestyle were often handed a sad, unseasoned plate of steamed vegetables from the back of the kitchen.
Completely isolated from the communal dining experience. Oh, we all know that
A
meal.
special dietary plate.
The one that miraculously arrives 20 minutes after every single other person at the table has already finished eating.
Making that guest feel like a massive burden. It's incredibly alienating.
But today, incorporating those dietary needs is built into the foundational architecture of the table.
Right. A vegan grazing section is engineered to be just as lush, vibrant, and texturally complex as the traditional dairy and meat sections.
We are talking about artisanal, cultured, cashew-based cheeses that mimic the tang and fat content of dairy.
Deeply marinated and roasted wild mushrooms that provide that savory umami note, usually reserved for meats.
Charred vegetables, incredible complex dips. It fundamentally elevates the hospitality experience.
It ensures that every single guest, regardless of their dietary framework, feels seen, catered to, and fully included in the communal abundance.
And beyond just what the food is, there's a huge trend toward how you interact with it.
The interactive DIY stations.
Yes, I'm seeing a lot about these woven into these grazing setups, so it's no longer just passively picking up a pre-made bite of food.
You're assembling it yourself.
Imagine a microstation within the grazing table where you use a culinary torch to caramelize the sugar on your own mini creme brulee.
Oh, people love a torch.
They do. Or a custom bruschetta bar where you select from different garlic-infused olive oils, balsamic glazes, heirloom tomato toppings.
It gives people a specific physical task to do, which, again, plays right back into that social lubrication.
It gives people something to talk about. Hey, pass the balsamic glaze.
Exactly. It creates a series of micro events within the larger reception.
And when you are actively participating in the creation or the final finishing of your food, you're engaging entirely different cognitive pathways.
You are deeply present in the moment. You aren't just eating, you are experiencing.
And from a memory-making standpoint, that active participation is highly memorable for a guest.
Way more memorable than just chewing on a piece of chicken.
Okay, let's step back and look at the whole picture. We have all these incredible, wild, diverse ingredients.
Earthy truffles, delicate dim sum.
Cultured vegan cashew cheese, braised short rib sliders. How in the world do you pull all of this together visually?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because how do you make sure this table looks like a cohesive, elegant masterpiece and not just like you dump the contents of a random grocery store aisle onto a table?
That is the most crucial pivot in this entire process, moving from conceptual ingredients to physical execution.
Because without a unifying aesthetic theory, you will absolutely end up with a chaotic mess.
You need a specific styling archetype to govern the visual language and the structural flow of the table.
So let's break those down. Because when you look at what the industry leaders are doing, caterers are really pulling from 5 main design schools or archetypes.
And they dictate entirely different emotional vibes for the room.
Right. The archetype you choose fundamentally alters the atmosphere of the reception. So the first major school of thought is the Mediterranean-inspired spread.
A classic.
When you look at this, it is all about fresh, bright, healthy, vibrant energy.
You've got your bright green Castelvetrano olives.
Bowls of creamy hummus with pools of golden olive oil.
Warm, pillowy pita bread. Massive blocks of feta.
Beautifully charred grilled vegetables. It feels incredibly open. It feels like you are sitting at a massive feast on a patio in the Amalfi Coast.
The visual language of the Mediterranean archetype relies heavily on color theory and the perception of freshness.
So lots of bright colors.
Yes. It utilizes a lot of negative space and bright acidic colors. The yellows of lemons, the bright greens of herbs, the stark whites of fresh cheeses.
It communicates lightness and vitality.
Psychologically, it's incredibly inviting. It works flawlessly for daytime events, outdoor weddings, or venues with massive amounts of natural light.
Then, completely shifting gears, you have the sweet and savory combo table.
This one is fascinating.
This is that balanced flavor playground experience we touched on earlier, but elevated to a structural principle.
It seamlessly mixes rich, decadent chocolates, fresh pastries, and seasonal fruits right alongside the robust aged cheeses and cured meats.
It's designed to hit every single craving your palate could possibly have all at once.
From a purely culinary science perspective, this archetype is a masterclass in contrasting flavor profiles and sensory stimulation.
Because you've got the heavy fat and salt.
Exactly. The heavy fat and salt content of a cured salumi coating the tongue, immediately followed by the bitter, astringent snap of a 70% dark chocolate.
Or the bright, acidic tartness of a fresh raspberry.
It creates a highly complex, almost confusingly delightful tasting experience for the guest.
It forces the palate to constantly reset and reevaluate.
Which keeps the guest engaged with the food for much longer.
Now, the third design school is where things get really logistical. The mini bite stations.
The nightmare for amateur caterers.
Yes. This is where those global fusion twists take center stage. This is the table that features the hot gourmet sliders, the elevated street tacos with micro cilantro, or the delicate steamed dim sum.
All anchored around the traditional room temperature charcuterie.
It's specifically for the couple that loves to travel, loves restaurants, and wants to showcase those diverse global flavors.
But as I said, this is where the amateurs fail and the professionals shine.
Because of the temperatures.
Because it requires incredible thermodynamic precision. balancing the temperature control, keeping a mini slider safely hot and juicy, right alongside a triple cream brie that needs to remain at a cool room temperature so it doesn't melt into a puddle.
That sounds incredibly hard.
It requires exact, rigorous logistical planning and specialized equipment disguised as decor. But when a culinary artist executes this well, it is wildly popular.
Because it triggers both the psychological comfort of hot, savory food and the novelty of grazing.
Precisely.
Okay, the fourth archetype is the luxury experience.
The black tie table.
Exactly. This is your upscale, no expense spared grazing table. We are talking premium, cave-aged cheeses, items heavily infused with real black truffles.
Delicate caviar accents sitting on mother-of-pearl spoons.
Gourmet artisanal fig spreads, massive dripping slabs of fresh honeycomb. It is rich, it is dark, and frankly, it screams exclusivity.
The visual cues required for a luxury table are entirely different from the Mediterranean table.
You throw out the bright colors and the airy spacing.
Instead, you utilize dark, heavy veined marble slabs. You use rich mahogany or walnut boards.
And the tones of the food itself are deeper, moodier, more intense.
Dark blackberries, deep ruby red meats, aged, crystallized cheeses that have a darker hue. It relies heavily on shadows and density to communicate opulence, weight, and financial investment.
And finally, the fifth school of design is the personalized theme board.
This is where you can get really creative.
This is where the table is specifically engineered from the ground up to be a literal physical extension of the wedding's exact decor and aesthetic.
So if a couple is throwing a bohemian wedding, the table reflects that ethos.
If it's a stark, modern, minimalistic loft wedding, the table mirrors that architecture.
This is where grazing tables transcend catering and truly become site-specific art installations.
So what's the contrast look like in practice?
Well, a modern minimalistic table will feature incredibly clean lines. You will see cheeses cut into precise geometric cubes or perfect spheres.
Wow, perfect spills of cheese.
Yes, there will be vast amounts of intentional negative space between the elements, and the styling will likely be monochromatic.
Like entirely stark white cheeses against black slate.
Very highly controlled, whereas a boho table relies on the illusion of wild nature. You utilize raw edge bark on wood.
You weave cascading wild vines and eucalyptus directly through the food.
You scatter edible wildflowers across the boards. It creates a very organic, almost overgrown, romantic abundance.
So I want to pose this directly to you, the listener. Think about your own tastes. Which of these 5 profiles actually fits your personality or the vibe you'd want for a major event?
Are you a dim sum and cheddar rebel who wants the chaotic fun of the mini bites?
Are you a truffle and black marble purist who wants to project that dark, moody luxury experience?
Or are you the free-spirited boho soul who wants the cascading vines and the edible flowers?
It really forces you to step back and think about what the food you serve actually says about you as a host.
It absolutely does. It shifts the entire foundational question of event planning.
You are no longer asking what bland chicken dish will offend the least number of people in this room.
You are asking what specific culinary and aesthetic experience represents who we actually are.
So let's pivot to the mechanics.
The nitty-gritty.
Right. We know the what and we know the emotional theme, but physically constructing this in the real world requires highly specialized knowledge.
The actual mechanics of the masterpiece.
Exactly. How do caterers turn these conceptual ideas into those stunning, flawless visuals we see online?
If you study the methodology of top-tier event planners, it is very clear that there is a strict underlying art and science to the styling.
It's not random placement.
Not at all. It relies heavily on 2 main pillars: structural presentation and the palette science of balancing elements.
Let's examine the structural presentation first.
This heavily involves the concept of topography.
Topography. Using layered heights, risers, pedestals, varying thicknesses of wood and marble to create immense depth.
I notice this immediately when I see a really good grazing table. You never, ever just lay everything flat directly on the surface of the table.
There are wooden crates, marble stands, metallic pedestals. It literally looks like a geographical map with mountains and valleys.
And that architectural theory is deployed to solve 2 very distinct problems.
Let's hear them.
Aesthetically, it is about cognitive processing. If you lay 200 pounds of food entirely flat on a table, the human eye gets overwhelmed.
It's like staring down the center of a massive grocery store aisle. Your brain can't isolate anything, so it just processes mass.
Exactly. By creating peaks and valleys, you dictate how the eye travels. You force the guest's gaze to pause at a high focal point, perhaps a massive cascading fruit display, and then sweep down to a valley of sliced meats.
It breaks the visual data into digestible chunks.
That is fascinating. It's retail psychology applied to cheese.
Eye level is bi-level, adapted for an event space. But practically, and arguably more importantly, layered heights solve the spatial problem of physical accessibility.
Oh, true. Think about the ergonomics of reaching for food.
You absolutely do not want guests having to extend their arms 2 feet over a massive sticky wheel of honey-drizzled brie.
Risking dragging their expensive formal wear through a bowl of dip just to reach a cracker in the back row.
Elevation solves this. By raising items in the back, you bring them into the guest's safe reach zone.
That makes total sense. It prevents disaster.
And then once the structure is built, there is the literal science of balancing the elements themselves.
The absolute necessity of combining soft and hard textures, sweet and savory flavors, and crunchy and creamy consistencies side by side.
This brings us to fundamental palate science and the concept of palate fatigue.
Right, because the human tongue is incredibly sensitive, but it gets bored very quickly.
If you build a table that is exclusively soft, high-fat cheeses and soft, high-fat cured meats,
The palate experiences severe fatigue within 3 or 4 bites. The fat coats the tongue, and everything begins to taste like a single, heavy, monotonous note.
the food coma effect.
Precisely. But a skilled caterer instructs the guest, through the visual proximity of the layout, on how to eat.
Oh, that's clever. They guide you.
They will place a soft, creamy, rich camembert directly next to a sharp, hard, intensely salty pecorino.
And right next to that, they will place a bowl of crisp, highly acidic green apple slices.
Or tart cornichons and some crunchy Marcona almonds. They are guiding you through a complete sensory cycle.
The fat coats the tongue, the salt triggers the salivary glands, the acid from the apple slices through the fat to cleanse the palate, and the crunch of the almond resets the jaw muscles.
That constant sensory contrast is the mechanical reason why people can stand at a grazing table for 2 hours and never get bored.
Okay, let's unpack reality for a second here.
Let's do it.
Because this sounds incredible, but it also sounds terrifyingly complex.
It is complex.
I understand the design theory. I know I want the dark-veined marble slabs. I understand the necessity of the acid cutting through the fat. And I know I want it to look like a moody, luxurious masterpiece.
Yep.
But honestly, if I am the one paying for this, I have absolutely no earthly idea how much food 150 people actually consume when they are grazing instead of eating a plated meal.
It's the great unknown.
How do I avoid the absolute nightmare scenario of running out of food 20 minutes into the reception and having a riot on my hands?
Or the opposite anxiety. Spending $7,000 on artisanal cheese and throwing half of it in the dumpster at midnight.
This raises the most important question of all, and it is the exact logistical anxiety that causes many couples to abandon the grazing table concept and retreat to the safety of the plated dinner.
The leap from, this looks beautiful on a Pinterest board, to, I have mathematically procured the exact right amount of food to safely and legally feed my guests, is massive.
You are moving from a highly controlled, known quantity, exactly 1 8-ounce chicken breast per person, to an incredibly volatile, unknown variable.
Exactly. It's terrifying. It's event planning algebra, and most of us are terrible at math.
Which brings us to the ultimate solution, and really the core focus of how you actually execute this vision without having a total nervous breakdown.
We need to talk about Weddizer.
Yes. Because if you actually look at how people are pulling these massive events off today, they aren't guessing. They are using Weddizer's website for food and drinks purposes.
It isn't just a place to scroll through pretty inspiration photos. It is a comprehensive, functional logistical engine designed to calculate and manage this exact complexity.
If you want to understand Weddizer, you have to look at it as an all-in-one survival toolkit for event management.
It is specifically engineered to bridge the massive, terrifying gap between aesthetic inspiration and physical execution.
When you are dealing with something as structurally complex, mathematically demanding, and frankly medically sensitive, we are talking about food temperatures and strict allergy protocols, as a grazing table, you absolutely cannot rely on guesswork or a messy spreadsheet.
So let's break down exactly how this platform solves the anxiety, because it basically operates as 3 interconnected lifelines.
The article section for deep dive guidance, the planning programs for the logistical math, and the business section for actual hiring.
Let's start with the guidance, the article section on the website.
Right. Because we aren't talking about generic top 10 wedding tips blog posts here.
No, the depth of the niche content available there is what completely separates it from standard wedding blogs. Couples are utilizing these highly specialized articles to learn the exact structural styling tips and architectural theories we just discussed.
But they go deeper. They provide exhaustive food pairing matrices. They will tell you exactly which specific varietal of lavender honey chemically pairs best with a specific cave-aged blue cheese.
They provide seasonal ingredient maps, which is vital for cost control and flavor.
Oh, completely. A grazing table designed for a humid July wedding should look, taste, and physically hold up vastly differently than a table built for a freezing November evening.
Right. You want fresh, water-heavy berries, light citrus, and hard cheeses that don't sweat in July.
And you want heavy, rich figs, dark chocolates, robust root vegetable crisps, and deep, creamy braies in November.
Precisely.
Hmm.
But the most critical function of these articles is that they provide the actual algorithmic portion planning guides.
This is the direct cure for your anxiety about running out of food.
They don't just say buy a lot of cheese. They offer the specific mathematical formulas needed to calculate the exact ounces of soft cheese, hard cheese, cured meat, and starches per guest.
And crucially, those formulas adjust dynamically based on the event structure.
Like, is this table acting merely as an appetizer during a cocktail hour before a main course, or is this massive 30-foot table the entire dinner?
The math changes drastically, and Weddizer gives you the formula.
That is massive. It takes the guesswork out entirely.
So the articles teach you the what, the why, and the precise how much.
Then we move to the second lifeline, the planning programs.
This is the back-end tech side of Weddizer. This is where you actually map out the reality of the event.
Organizing catering checklists, setting and tracking highly specific budgets, and creating rigorous food prep timelines.
I want to focus on that timeline feature because it is critical to preventing disaster.
As we discussed earlier with the global fusion elements and the mini-bite stations, a modern grazing table is not a static object you set and forget.
If you have hot, braised, short rib sliders and cold, raw sushi sitting on the exact same table as room temperature cheese,
You are battling thermodynamics.
you need a minute-by-minute logistical timeline for when things are prepped in the kitchen, when they are plated on the floor, and exactly when they must be rotated out to comply with food safety standards.
Weddizer's planning tools allow you to map that intricate choreography out in advance, so absolutely nothing is overlooked.
It imposes necessary, rigorous structure on the visual abundance.
And we cannot ignore the budgeting tool.
Because earlier we talked about how a grazing table offers cost flexibility. It can be incredibly budget-friendly if you want it to be.
But let's be real. If you walk into a gourmet importer and just start pointing at truffles and imported caviar and rare prosciutto, it will bankrupt you faster than a plated dinner ever could.
The Weddizer financial tools let you track those granular expenses in real time, matching them against your total budget so you know exactly where every single dollar is going.
It's literally like having a ruthless financial advisor sitting in your pocket, specifically dedicated to managing your cheese board.
Which naturally leads us to the final and arguably most important feature of the platform, the business section.
Finding the best hiring for wedding events.
Because let's face reality, unless you are a professional, highly trained chef with a staff of 6, you are not physically building a 30-foot, structurally sound grazing table yourself on the morning of your event.
You absolutely have to hire the right professionals.
Yes, the vendor directory. And this isn't just a digital phone book. You can dive into the section to browse highly vetted, verified catering services that specifically specialize in the niche art of grazing tables.
You aren't just blindly calling a traditional caterer who usually does chicken and rice and asking, hey, can you try to throw together a massive cheese board?
You are locating the actual culinary artists who understand topography and palate fatigue.
You can pull up their profiles, compare their specialized packages, contrast their pricing structures.
And this is the absolute game changer. You can contact the caterers directly through the platform. You are booking them without a gatekeeping middleman.
The removal of the middleman in the event planning industry is a massive, disruptive advantage for the consumer.
First, it provides radical pricing transparency, which has historically been notoriously difficult to find in wedding planning.
You see exactly what you're paying for.
But far more importantly, it allows for direct, unfiltered communication with the actual culinary artist who will be standing in the room building your table.
When you're trying to execute a highly complex, personalized vision, say, a dark, moody luxury theme with global fusion hot bites and a massive, structurally integrated vegan section, you need to be speaking directly to the chef.
You cannot play a game of telephone through a generic event coordinator and hope the chef understands your vision.
It is brilliant. I really look at utilizing the Weddizer website like this.
Hmm.
Imagine having a master logistical event planner, a strict financial advisor, and a world-class culinary Rolodex all consolidated into one dashboard.
Instead of the old way cobbling together a chaotic Pinterest board for visual inspiration, wrestling with a messy Excel spreadsheet that you don't really know how to use for your budget.
And doing desperate, blind Google searches hoping you magically find a caterer who understands your hyper-specific vision.
Weddizer centralizes and streamlines the entire complex process.
It fundamentally removes the friction from the planning process.
The entire philosophical goal of a grazing table, as we established at the beginning, is to create a seamless, relaxed, joyful, and deeply communal experience for your guests.
It is incredibly difficult for a host to project that relaxed, joyful energy into the room if the back-end planning process itself has been a chaotic, stressful nightmare.
Weddizer ensures that the invisible behind-the-scenes logistics are just as smooth and elegant as the front-end visual presentation.
So we have covered an absolutely massive amount of ground today.
We started by looking at the deep sociology of why grazing tables are completely revolutionizing the event industry.
They are actively tearing down the rigid, isolating formality of the traditional plated dinner.
And replacing it with a dynamic, kinetic, interactive experience that prioritizes organic guest mingling and creates stunning architectural aesthetics in the center of the room.
We explore the incredible, complex variety of modern culinary twists that elevate these tables from simple snacks to comprehensive, immersive dining journeys.
From the intricate integration of global fusion elements like sushi and hot sliders, to the deliberate, beautiful, and deeply necessary inclusion of vegan and gluten-free dietary needs.
And the palate-cleansing science of merging sweet and savory elements.
We broke down the visual language of the 5 major styling archetypes, whether you lean towards the bright, fresh airspace of the Mediterranean vibe,
The thermodynamic challenge of global mini-bites.
the dark, heavy, opulent weight of the luxury truffles, or a totally bespoke, personalized theme.
And we learned the literal physical science of how these tables are constructed, using topographical layered heights to solve spatial accessibility and balancing textures and acids to actively combat palate fatigue.
And crucially, we established the reality that navigating this level of culinary and logistical complexity requires the right technological tools.
The Weddizer platform serves as the essential stabilizing bridge.
Offering the highly niche articles for complex portion planning, the sophisticated tech for managing budgets and thermodynamic timelines, and the direct access business directory to find and hire the specialized culinary artists.
To execute your exact vision transparently and efficiently.
It truly changes the game from crossing your fingers and hoping it works out to knowing with mathematical certainty that you have a master plan.
It does. And if we step back from the spreadsheets, the logistics, and the cheese for just a moment, I think this entire movement leaves us with something much deeper to consider.
I think so too.
If the way we serve food at our most important milestone life events is fundamentally shifting away from a historical model of sit quietly, face forward, and be served, to a modern model of wander, explore, interact, and share.
What does that tell us?
What does that tell us about our evolving cultural definition of community, celebration, and human connection?
Are we finally collectively realizing that, despite all the grand formal dining rooms in the world, the absolute best, most authentic conversations, the real human connections, always happen when we are just standing around the kitchen together?
I think we are.
I absolutely love that thought. The whole reception just becomes one giant, beautifully designed, completely welcoming kitchen island.
The best place to be.
And that is exactly where we will leave it for today. Keep exploring, keep questioning how you gather, and we will see you next time on The Deep Dive.